240 million, 192 million, 57.6 million, 1.18 million. Why are these numbers important? Well, nationally, there are 240 million calls placed to 911 every year. And of those, 192 million are wireless calls. And of those 192 million, 57.6 million calls are abandoned. That's approximately 30%, and 1.18 million hours returning those abandoned calls. How can we streamline this process and focus the time and energy of our telecommunicators? TriTech's revolutionary approach to abandoned call processing can do just that. Save vital hours by providing your agency with an alternative workflow for reaching out to those abandoned wireless callers. So abandoned calls is becoming a huge problem. It's been a huge problem. People have their phone in their pockets, their children are playing with it, and most 911 answer points spend a great deal of time dealing with those abandoned calls that may or may not actually have an emergency. So what can we do to help streamline processing those calls and keeping your call takers free to answer potentially emergent calls based on different parameters that you set in the system? Okay. So what I'm going to do is ring in an abandoned call. And when I do that and it goes into an abandoned status, it's now in my abandoned call queue. Now I could go ahead and choose to dial out by clicking on that hyperlink. I could even just hit this yellow button here that's now lit up that's saying I need to call back this abandoned call. So I can go ahead and make this nice and easy to place that call back. But that still requires me to take time away from answering other 911 calls and potentially make contact with this person. What TriTech has done is given us the ability to use text messaging to help deal with these abandoned calls for service. So given your agency's configuration, when you receive that abandoned call from a wireless phone, we can automatically send a text message to that phone saying whatever you want it to say. You've accidentally dialed 911. If you have an emergency, call back. Or maybe you've dialed 911. Do you have an emergency? Now, if I were to attempt to make a call out, that person on the other end may or may not answer the phone from a number they're unfamiliar with. But everybody looks at their text messages. So they can look at that text message and decide, actually respond to you. So no, I don't have an emergency. If I don't have an emergency, pull it out of the call queue, we're done. Maybe, yes, I do have an emergency. All right, so now let's initiate a back and forth conversation via text message in order to try to facilitate getting that person the help that they need. Now, if I receive no reply, I sent out my first text message, and then it maybe after 30 seconds or a minute or whatever time frame your agency sets up, send out a second text message, and then send out a third text message, and I still have not received any sort of reply. So now I am in a status of abandoned. That means that some action needs to be taken by a person in order to attempt to make contact. And again, that contact could happen from this button click to dial out that number, or to go ahead and just click that red button there and have it automatically place that abandoned call dial out for me.